Hello, all, and welcome to the first beer review of tonight. There's going to be actually two beer reviews tonight because I figure it's New Year's Eve. I'm not going to be drinking for an entire year. I might as well go and make the most of it. And please, there's fireworks going on in the background, and that's probably what you're going to be hearing from henceforth. It's probably going to get much more crazy with the second review because the second review is probably going to be about a couple hours, 2 to 3 hours from now. And what are we reviewing first? Well, I went to Three Peaks and got a growler fill because, why not? Final day of the year, might as well go all out. This one is from Beer Lab Hawaii. This is 24-hour lemon. Well, actually, 24 lemon or 24-hour lemon? Let me go see here. 24 lemon. That's what it is. 24 lemon. And 5.5 ABV. Brewed with Centennial hops and lemongrass. 22 IBUs, by the way. So mildly bitter, but also very sour. Sour ale. Of course, you have to go and realize that I would review a sour beer for a sort of special year-end beer review because sours are pretty much becoming my favorite kind of beer. Have been for quite some time, actually. So without much further ado, let's just get straight into this, shall we? If I can open it, that is. Yeah, there we go. Get a good sign. It had a hiss when I opened it. Give it a fairly vigorous pour. So I wanted to go and get a good head. Notice that my growler tends not to go and be very well carbonated. So don't always assume that, my carbonation notes have any real bearing when it comes to growler fills. So, a cloudy golden brown, I suppose, with a off-white to beige thick head, even especially for a growler. Huh. Almost herbal, spicy notes. Not what I was expecting. Can smell the lemongrass, but the grass aspect is much more apparent in the nose. Not really getting much sense of the malts underneath. I would guess bready to crackery. Predominant note is a sort of herbaceous, grassy spiciness. And even though her name is 24 Lemon, it's really lemongrass kind of smell here. Well, onto the palate, shall we? Very mildly sour, I would have to say. This is not tongue-scorchingly sour. So the acidity is moderate. Definitely lemongrass up front. And the taste on the palate emphasizes more the lemon aspect of the lemongrass rather than the herbaceous, grassy aspect of the lemongrass, which comes across in the nose. Malts kind of are what I guessed, crackery to bready, but not overly apparent. Hop bitterness shows up in the mids. and declined somewhat in the finish. Excuse me, a little bit went down the wrong pipe there. I don't have COVID. Just a little dark joke. At the end of a little dark year, I suppose. There's a bit of citrus that shows up in the long finish, as well as an underlying herbaceous grassy note from the nose, but it's very subtle. It really is interesting how apparent it is, because you catch it in the effervescent notes in the up here, but it really doesn't show up on the palate at all. Honestly, I can't say that I really like that note. Some people might. It's a little bit too grassy and herbaceous for me. But I'm getting used to it as I'm drinking it. Yeah, it's definitely something. It's actually subsiding somewhat as it warms up, which is rather odd. It's usually the other way around. Usually strong notes tend to go and expand themselves a little bit. It seems like the sourness is actually increasing itself right now, as it were. Yeah, it's becoming. I'm not sure if it's I'm becoming situated to that sort of flavor thing, and it's no longer as shocking. But it's coming across as much more well balanced now as it warms up or as I'm drinking it. Lemon notes really starting to show up in the midst to finish. Very nicely defined, with the grassiness being underneath it, and a bit more muted now. Yes, it's definitely becoming much more well balanced, much more nicely blended in the flavors. It's just like the malts are sort of reasserting itself a little bit. It would be interesting to have this on draft, where there would be a little bit more with that original carbonation bite. I also have a feeling that probably a little bit of a not so common yeast was used in this, which is probably what's adding to that sort of grassiness and herbaceousness in the lemongrass notes. By no means yeasty. It just sort of comes across, especially now as it's warming up, that there are some certain fermentation aspects, certain notes that come across as like not so common yeast. Not a very, not sure what the word is I'm looking for here. So, 24 Lemon from Beer Lab Hawaii. What can I say about it in summation? While it's not really, tongue-scorchingly sour, it does have some fairly challenging taste notes in it, which make it more for the exploratory beer drinker rather than someone who's just starting out, seasoned beer drinker rather than someone who's just starting out. And your mileage may vary with it. That primary note right there takes some getting used to, and I'm not sure everyone would get used to it. It is really interesting to kind of suss out. Like I said, it took me a while to kind of realize, I think there's some fermentation aspects to it that kind of add to the flavor going on here. And actually, to tell the truth, yeah, it doesn't have, for a sour, it doesn't have very many kettle sour aspects. It doesn't have like that sort of strong minerality or that sort of sweet tarts kind of flavor to it. So I'm kind of wondering, well, it's got to be a kettle sour because I don't think they've aged. If this was an aged sour, they would have put it on that. I'm kind of wondering if they use, some Brett as part of the fermentation process or some other sort of yeast thing. It's Beer Lab Hawaii. They do a lot of experimental things. So a subtle yet interesting sour ale. One that I would recommend to someone looking to explore new avenues. And while it's, it didn't blow me away, but it's interesting to say the least. And not overly challenging compared to some of the beers I've had. It's 24 Lemon. It's your beer review for tonight, folks. See you in a few hours. Cheers.